Yes. It's not real without the intro music.
I know, right? Let it come to life. Cheers to the weekend.
Okay, cheers. L'chaim. So, I'm very excited about this episode. It's a big one.
Yes, I am excited as well. There's a lot of information.
Yes.
We went really hard for this one, guys.
Look, we have been on the phone, on FaceTime, on everything for what, like every day this week?
Yes, at least for like an hour or two a day.
Oh, more than that. Yeah. I feel like we are best friends at this point. I feel like I know your whole family. Like I'm just sending like information back and forth. We really worked hard on this for you guys.
Yes. So welcome, you guys. Welcome to the second official episode of 27, where we discuss race and rights. Yes. So our objective is going to be to unite people and to help amend the amendments, guys. At the end of every episode now, we're going to introduce our amendment, and we want to hear your amendment ideas as well.
Yes.
So get them ready for us.
Yeah, the first one was a run through. Look, we have a format that we're going to break it down for you.
We're bringing it together.
We're ready today.
Yes. So with that being said, the Second Amendment. Second Amendment is a big thing. It, dare I say, triggers a lot of feelings for a lot of people instantly, you know. So we're going to start with talking about what the law began as, and then we are going to talk about what the law means today. And I don't think that maybe everyone recognizes that the law was not always as such.
Yeah.
Right?
So we're going to start. Khaliah's going to read the laws, just the amendment so we know it. Then she's going to break it down for us, just so we can actually understand it. This one's not as bad as the First Amendment, which, you know, me and I didn't know redress. Like, that was a whole thing.
It's not so wordy.
Yes.
But
it's still confusing.
You know, very obtrusive. Like, why is it just not have a regular meaning? Why does it have to be so much? It's like it was written to be slightly confusing.
And for sure. Yeah. And then Khaliah is going to talk to us a little bit about law. Then I'm going to go over some legal landmarks. So some cases and acts, laws that were passed that we'll see kind of how things like change through the years to get us where we are today. Then we would love for you to ask questions. There's a little question button down there. And if you have anything that you really want to talk about, but maybe it's not super relevant to the current conversation, please ask it, because we'll take a comment break after that. And then, of course, we're going to talk about some really disturbing cases that, I mean, they have to be talked about. Yeah.
Just to, you know, bring things from a few years ago back to now and see if things have changed or if they have not. And don't forget, guys, have your amendments ready, because this is how we're going to make the change. So, yay! And welcome everybody who has joined us so far. Good to have you. All right. So let's go ahead and just start out with the Second Amendment. So, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay, so as we said, this amendment was written and it meant one thing, and over time it evolved into what we now know for most people means that they can just have their own personal weapon.
So what did it mean initially, Khaliah?
So initially, this complete law was about the state having its own military to fight the federal government if they were, you know, acting up, or if they were out of line and you needed to protect your state and the individuals in the state. Over time, it's become a law of individual gun ownership, and I think slight power trip,
Slight.
But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how that plays into life. Yeah.
Amazing.
So, yes. So Nova, do you want to talk a little bit about the precedents?
Yeah.
AKA landmark cases that'll lead us into a little bit of where we are today.
Perfect. So just I love a preface. I hate a preface when someone gives it to me, but I love to give everyone else a preface. Talking about law makes me very nervous. I'm going to try to speak slowly and articulately. I'm going to try to keep everyone engaged, but I'm very nervous right now.
We are not lawyers, okay?
We are not, yes.
We are here to bring people together to have a conversation. But we dove really deep with this information for you guys, okay? We wanted to make it as real as possible, and we wanted it to be very educational. So
you're basically watching two makeup artists who care about what is going on in this country, kind of learn things for ourselves and navigate through the amendments and try to figure out what they are. We had a couple lawyers, Nagin and Brandon, give us some information. So it's really village. I mean, it wouldn't be this without the intro music.
Yes, right. Because we've had intro music created for us and everything. Yeah, it's been real.
Okay. So we're gonna bring it all the way back and start out with in the 1800s. So these are all cases that kind of, you'll see how it slowly moves towards things like the Stand Your Ground law. But it's
before we even go there, I did want to just state one thing about the Constitution, okay? Yes. It's very important because race and rights directly relate with each other, that we understand that the Constitution was written by white men for white men or white people. At the time that the Constitution was written, we were not considered human beings at that time. So it's very important that we understand that this was not written for Black people when we're talking about the Constitution. And that is why we're talking about it, because there's certain things that are still affecting us today because it's not written for us. Before Definitely. She goes into the cases that are about to happen, because that's important to know.
Can you talk about one other thing? About the saving of the white woman, and how that has a lot to do with how the amendments were written. You say it way better than I do. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Wait, bring me all the way in. Give me an instant of conversation.
The right to bear arms and like having a militia. Basically, this whole country was founded on, white men and everything like that, but also this savior complex to save white women.
Right. So, the fear. Like, there's always a fear complex that's taking place for some reason, and it's fearful that white women need saving. You know what I mean? And that's a lot of the reason why slavery went on for as long as it did. I mean, it sounds very surface, but when you really think about it, it's a real thing. So it's very deep, and it's something that we just all need to be comfortable talking about. It's not blaming anyone specific now, but it is embedded in the DNA of the United States of America. This country was built off of white supremacy. That's the only thing that was known at that time. It's not to be, it's not to hurt anybody's feelings or anything. It just is what it is. And so we're still living off of the same document that was written for white supremacy today, but we're saying that it's not a racist country, and it is. So we just need to recognize it so that we can change it.
And these are the kind of conversations that we need to be having, not just here on our pages, but literally everywhere.
Everywhere.
Because the documents that govern this country were not written for any minorities in this country. So here are some of the cases that brought us where we are today. All right.
Yes.
So 1857 is Dred Scott versus Sanford. So this was really important because this was the very first time that Black individuals were recognized as humans and as citizens. That had never happened before. So that was why that case was so important. We fast forward about 20 years, and we have this case comes up a lot. So this one is very important. So this is 1876, and it's United States versus Cruikshank. So this case prevented mobs and groups like the KKK from blocking newly freed Black citizens access to their constitutional right. Constitutional rights.
Constitutional right.
So the court ruled that the Second Amendment was designed only to block federal government to infringing on the right to bear arms, not citizens' infringements. So basically, they were trying to prevent KKK's group and hate groups from blocking these freed citizens, but they're like, no, that they can still do that because this law, this amendment only pertains to the federal government staying out of states' rights. These groups still have the right.
Right.
So, and from up until 1939, all the big cases that go through the Supreme Court having to do with the Second Amendment revert back to that. And they're like, nope, it's the same thing.
Right.
So then we get to 1939. Now, this is the United States versus Miller. Now, in the Al Capone era, following like mob-related incidents like the Valentine's Day Massacre, this case examined more like what type of guns, specifically like machine guns and sawed-off shotguns. So this was less about the right to bear arms and more like drilling it down, like what kind of guns can we actually have access to?
Right.
Because it was changing. Like now, you know, we're building more guns. We have more options. So the laws were starting to reflect that. Now, Miller carried a sawed-off shotgun across the state lines. Now, this was breaking the National Firearms Act of 1934, enacted 5 years prior. Look, we had to look all this stuff up.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people. Yeah, I don't even think people have ever even really. I mean, I think the NRA, of course, and like all of the people who are really into guns know all of this, but all of us on the outside, like, I don't think anybody knows this. I've never even heard what she's about to say. This is. Yeah.
So the National Firearms Act states that guns must be registered with the federal government, and individuals owning guns must pay taxes on those guns. So in federal court, they ruled that the National Firearms Act actually violates the Second Amendment and the Fifth. I didn't write this down, but they also ruled that it violated the Fifth Amendment because when you're registering your guns with the federal government, that infringes your right
to due process, probably.
We haven't gotten to that amendment. Khaliah, what's the Fifth Amendment?
Yeah, that one goes way deeper than just not saying things. You know, a lot of us just feel like we can plead the Fifth. Like, it goes a lot deeper than that. Yeah. So
that was violating the privacy section. I don't know the words, but tune in to episode Fifth Amendment and you'll find out.
5, possibly 4.
Possibly 5, possibly 4. We may mush some together. So in the federal court, they rule that it violates the Second Amendment, that National Firearms Act. But then it goes to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court says that although these specific firearms, the machine guns and the sawed-off shotguns, relate to a well-regulated militia, which is part of the Second Amendment, but it still doesn't guarantee citizens to bear such instruments. So they're saying like, okay, like I get it, like you need them for a militia, but like private citizens, you can't have these guns.
You guys still can't have guns. So this is what year? We're in 1939 now.
1939.
You still can't have guns.
People had guns, but it didn't reflect in the law.
Correct. Yeah. So it was still not written for us to just be like gun-toting Americans up until this point.
Yeah. So in 1975, we have the Firearms Control Regulations Act. Very long title. I mean, they could have shortened it for me.
Yeah, no abbreviations back then.
This bans, everything would be like AGB, blah, 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 blah. So the Firearms Control Regulations Act of 1975 bans residences from owning firearms unless you're a police officer or if you have guns that were registered before 1976. I believe this was a DC case. So they're saying, okay, now like no more guns, we're done with it. So you can't have them unless you're a police officer or if you registered it before that was enacted or ratified. Additionally, the guns in the home must be unloaded, disassembled, or have a trigger lock on. So they were very concerned with like safety in the home and how we're storing it. Okay, ready guys? 1977. This is when we see the NRA completely shift focus. So up until this point, the NRA was actually focused on hunting, conservation, and marksmanship. All of a sudden, in 1977, they changed focus to individual gun ownership, as well as narrowing the interpretation of the Second Amendment. So they're like, okay, look, let's sell more guns. Here's how we're going to do it. We are going to exploit the Second Amendment. So this led to the major political involvement that you see today with the NRA. And they end up doing gun lobbying and all sorts of things that actually affect a lot of the laws that you'll start to see from that point on.
Yes.
So 2005 is a big one because we are going to be speaking about Trayvon Martin later. And so we have to talk about the Stand Your Ground Act in 2005. So this was ratified in Florida, and it's also relevant because it's ratified in Kentucky, and we'll speak about Breonna as well. So this was spearheaded by the NRA, and it changed the self-defense law to where individuals no longer have an obligation to retreat before using force. So they stand, I was standing my ground. I can use as much force as I want. I don't have to back up. I was scared. Yeah. So the big thing is like, I'm scared is an excuse to murder someone. Basically, that's what this law pushed forth. And I don't think a lot of people know this about the Stand Your Ground Act, but this also allows an individual, if they claim stand their ground, they can go to the judge and request a pretrial and say, I'm claiming the stand your ground. And they then can ask the judge for immunity for the trial.
Yes.
So
like it never happened. Like this didn't take place.
Yeah.
Because I was scared. And you know who that works for?
White people. White men.
Right. Cis,
a lot of
white,
these
gender men.
Yeah. So we'll go into it more, but we found a lot of cases where literally it could be the same court case, and if it was a minority defendant, they completely ruled in the opposite way. So even though these laws are happening, it matters nothing for any additional communities.
It only matters to the people who, it only matters for the people who are making the laws. They're going to determine who they work for and who they don't work for.
Exactly.
So that's why we got to change.
So in 2008, this is the last one. And then I want to read a quote that I lost, so I'll find it.
Okay.
So 2008 is a huge one. This is when we see everything shift. So Special Police Officer, this is District of Columbia versus Heller. So Special Police Officer Heller applies for a gun for the protection of his home. I'm going to start that over. Can I speak? Do I know how to talk anymore?
It sounds good still. Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine.
It still sounds good. It's a lot of law all at once. Yeah.
He's a special police officer. Basically, he applies to get a gun for his house. He gets denied. He is not happy, okay? So he's like, why was I denied? I am a police officer and I am special. He said it violates my Second Amendment rights. So this is the moment when we start to see a shift in the way that the Second Amendment is viewed. So DC, as we said before, they currently have a lot of gun regulations, right? They currently prohibited the ownership of handguns. And during this case, the Supreme Court would say for the first time that the Second Amendment is an individual right. This is huge. So in 2008 is now when suddenly the right to bear arms is the first time that this is an individual right.
Me and everybody can have a gun now. Yeah.
Yes, technically. And they also said that the well-regulated militia part was now outdated. So they're like, you know what, the first part is outdated. So we're gonna just go with the second part because that's current, and we're gonna now apply it to individuals. So just like completely, like instead of adding an amendment, we're just gonna change what it means.
Just completely change it.
Exactly.
Just completely omit it.
And this was heavily supported and lobbied by the NRA. Shocker. I lost my quote. So They ruled that the restrictions on gun regulations were an infringement on an individual citizen's right to bear arms for lawful self-defense. This was limited to law-abiding adults. So any minors, anyone with a criminal record, and anyone mentally ill would not be granted this right. So, I mean, we all know how that goes.
Right. That's not working.
I wanted to read a quote, but I'm just going to have to give you the gist of it. There was a Supreme Court justice. So that's like the highest level of judge.
Yes.
Yeah, they're at the top. And they basically, I'll paraphrase, which I didn't want to do, but I'm going to do it because I lost my quote. But
it'll come back. But yeah.
I'm so prepared. Just kidding. So basically he said that it was just a disgrace what the NRA was doing, and how it was manipulating the Second Amendment for personal gain. And that was said like in directly after the 2008 case. So this is how we are. This is where we are.
Yeah. So this
I'm
is
sure
where we
there's
are.
comments. Should we go through?
Yeah. Let's take a moment.
I sweat a lot on my upper lip too. We were joking last time. It's like, why does she keep like touching her? I'm not giving secret signals. I'm just warm and nervous.
You can't even tell in the video. I know I have a bit of shine myself. Let's see. So what kind of questions do we have, guys?
Cool. That's what I wanted to do. And I don't know how to undo it.
Oh, no.
Great. I'm back.
There you go. Hey.
I don't think we have questions. Just kidding. We are boring. We are not invoking conversation, and that's fine. We're fine.
There's going to be lots of stuff to talk about. We're just happy to have you guys all here. If you don't know where we are yet, this is our second episode. We are talking about the Second Amendment, and this is 27. I am Khaliah, and this is Nova, and we just discussed the precedent cases that took place for us to be where we are today in the Second Amendment as we know it, which means that individuals have the right to bear arms and sometimes take them outside of their homes as well.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Let's see. All right. Welcome, guys. Welcome. So if there are no further questions, let's just go right into talking about Trayvon Martin.
Before we do that, we got a question. We got a pity question from my wife.
Yes, come through. A pity question.
Oh, wait. Now we got questions.
Yes.
Okay, first, how do these amendments apply to each of us in everyday situations? From Jamie.
Well, I definitely think in everyday situations, especially now, the way things are, you never know if you're going to be in a situation, especially for brown people, where you need to know your rights. You know, it could be as simple as getting pulled over and just knowing that maybe you don't have to let somebody search your car, or maybe you don't have to say anything or answer what they're, asking you. And as a Black person, you generally feel like you need to answer people's questions just to like avoid the confrontation. And even then, as we know and we see, it still leads to confrontation. So I definitely think it's just important for us all to know our rights. And when we see things that are going wrong, stand up for other people and like shout it out. Don't just let things happen around you that are negative.
Yes. Okay, are all types of guns called arms? So arms is an abbreviation for firearms, I believe, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Sidearm, firearm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
so.
Yeah, I feel like that's why you can have an AR-15 and a 9mm.
Which AR-15 is a whole nother discussion.
So extreme, but it's like I hate it because I'm so diplomatic. And it's like, okay, I get how if like you really do just like to collect guns, like, and you're not a crazy person, like maybe that would just be the thing you want to do. But at the same time, it's a weapon and you could just kill like 1 million people at once because you're just wanting to collect something that maybe shouldn't be collected. So, it's just so, yeah.
And
it's not safe.
The ones you said AR, what was it, 14 and 15?
AR-15s.
AR-15s were specifically, just a side note, they were specifically created so that, because automatic rifles are banned for individual use. So they created the AR-15, which is modeled after the automatic rifles in the military, so that they had something for
people who wanted them. Right.
Yeah, one of them.
Right. There's always a loophole.
Do you think you need a gun? That's actually a really good question. I don't. I'm very we talked about this. I have very I'm real scared of guns because of a lot of the mass shootings,
traumas and
things that have things that have affected people I know, and situations that are just a little too close. I was held up at gunpoint when I was a teenager. So I have a different relationship with guns. So I don't necessarily want a gun in the house. It doesn't make me comfortable at all. But I also understand why other individuals would feel opposite.
Right.
What about you?
Yeah. For me, I mean, over the years, I feel like in the past, maybe not so much, but now maybe more.
Yeah.
Just because my views over time have changed, the world has changed, and I mean, Black people need to have guns. I mean, unfortunately, it's not that I ever want to have to use it whatsoever, but just for the protection of Black bodies, it's crazy out here. So I mean, just to at least protect yourself in your dwelling, which even then, we'll talk about that later, is
we'll definitely get into all of that. Nicole said, are there any bills or potential legislation to get rid of stand your ground? Not that I found. I feel like they're just.
Yeah, we watched a documentary, and they talked a lot about stand your ground. And they talked about how they tried to get rid of it. They tried to repeal it, and the NRA just has their hands wrapped around it, like it's not going anywhere. And the NRA is paying into the legislation. So if there is somebody that these government officials, very important that we recognize who our government officials are and who we elect in here. Because if we do elect someone in and they do, get rid of the policy, they might try to get rid of that person, which you see happening currently in the United States right now. So it's just such a dangerous game, but these are things that need to happen. And it's sad that we have to think about the corruptness of the system before we can even think about just the change happening.
Yeah. Kayla said you skipped my question, but we didn't skip your question. You asked about firearms, and we're saying yes. We think, yes, that it is all guns. Let's see. Jamie said, we are arming ourselves with enough education to not need cowardly weapons. Ooh, coming in hot.
Ooh.
19 said, what's the need for someone to be in the grocery store with a gun? I don't know. I can't answer that.
Fear. I feel like fear.
Yeah.
Fear. Because, and then it's how do you know if the person is good who has the gun, and how do you know if the person is bad who has the gun, if everybody can have guns out? How do you know? You know what I mean? Nobody knows that a person is going to do anything with a gun until they do it. But the fact that you're allowing people to just carry them around is already how am I supposed to tell who's right and wrong? You know what I mean? Nobody's wearing a sign I'm bad. So I feel like it just leaves even more room for chaos.
Chaos. Literally just happened in Detroit.
Yeah. Peaceful chaos.
Carrying a gun, whether it's a grocery store or Chipotle. It's a prime example of creating chaos.
Right. Yeah. And then when people are already fearful of color, you know what I mean? People are fearful of skin color. It just is a thing.
Yeah.
So when you're already afraid, then it's already not an equal fight. You have a gun, then you react. Then, there's just nothing left. So it's not wise, I feel like.
Yeah.
But
I feel like it just creates more chaos. There's like a battle happening in the chat that I'm just gonna skip over.
Oh wait.
Keep shit positive. Negative step out.
Where are you at?
I'm where Jamie said, good question, Nick. And I think we answered her question all right. If we didn't, Nicole, please write it again. If this is the first time I've ever called her Nicole, she's probably like, who are you talking about? There's education, it's talking about our education system, but this isn't really about education. This is about the Second Amendment.
I'm going to let you keep reading the question.
Right.
I lost track of that.
So I feel like at this point, we are ready to hop into our cases.
Nova, what does that mean? What did you just read?
Trayvon. I feel like we answered all the questions. I'll check the little questions bubble. Nobody's put anything down there. So let's go ahead and hop into Trayvon.
All right. So I think that most of us are familiar with this case.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate situation that took place February 26th of 2012. Trayvon Martin was a young Black man, he was 17, he was a Black boy, who was killed by George Zimmerman in Florida. And this was under the Stand Your Ground law. So, you know, everybody knows the story. Trayvon had went to the store, you know, he got some iced tea, he got some Skittles, he was on his way back, and he saw someone following him, and, you know, this person continued to follow, called 911. 911 even suggested for the person to stop following him, and the person continued, pursued the person, and he ended up, you know, being killed. And George Zimmerman got off.
Yes. So bringing it back to, so how does that relate to the Second Amendment?
Right. So Second Amendment, we all know that now individuals can have guns. So George Zimmerman was within his right to have the gun, right? But it's so hard to say that, you know, he's like within his right, because I feel like if you're going to have a gun, you know, you got to take an oath to be responsible about it. You know what I mean? And we all know, especially now in hindsight, that George Zimmerman is a racist. I mean,
yes,
he's a clear racist person. Like, he's out here signing bags of Skittles and stuff, just doing the most heinous things ever. And it's like, you know, once you've been acquitted of something, we can't charge you again. So, I mean, Stand Your Ground allowed that to happen, though, you know? I mean, and they wouldn't even allow race to be brought into the case. That's another thing. Like,
yeah,
the Constitution needs to have race added into it, because it wasn't written during a time where we were even considered people. So it needs to have it added in. You know,
yes.
and it's the only way to even kind of make it equal, if there's a way to ever make that happen.
So basically, if you don't know the background, George Zimmerman wanted to be a police officer. So he was like, he had a white father and an Afro-Peruvian Peruvian?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mother. And so he used to identify more with his, less of his white heritage. So he used to identify more with that. And then throughout his life, he saw how he was treated, and he decided to start assimilating. So once he started assimilating, he got mentors that were in the police force. He wanted to be a cop. He tried to be a cop, and then they basically said, oh, no, you can't be a cop because you have on your record, I think it was aggravated assault on a police officer that had happened prior, and one other charge. So he now wants to be a cop so bad. So what he then does is he joins Neighborhood Watch. He's like, well, I'm gonna be I'm going to protect this neighborhood and live out my dream. So he's
Right.
on the phone with the police officer when he sees someone suspicious. He had called in suspicious activity.
And yeah, and what is suspicious?
Black.
Like, he's brown, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I just feel like that was implicit fear already. Like, you've already just said, like, I'm scared. And why? Because when you describe this person, the only thing that you can say is that they're black and they have a hoodie on. So that's suspicious?
I think he's black. These fucking punks, they always get away.
Right.
Previously, right before then, there was 2 black individuals that got away with a home invasion. So you're seeing that, okay,
so
these punks always get away.
Right.
So now he's protecting his neighborhood. He's king of the neighborhood watch. He carries a weapon that he has like his papers for, and he calls in suspicious activity. Somebody, he looks suspicious. He's wearing a hoodie. I think he's black. They always get away. I'm losing him. And the police, what are they called? The dispatcher says, do not follow him. Stay in your vehicle. This does not need to happen. And then that's when we lose audio. So we don't know what happens.
Correct. Except for that the young lady was on the phone.
Yes.
The young lady was on the phone with Trayvon, and she had said, you know, just run away from him. Like, just, you know, just run away, which, you know, in hindsight now she feels bad about, because she felt like that was the reason that, you know, he ended up, you know, being killed. But the whole situation was just jacked. Like, the whole situation was jacked, and the laws are just not written for brown people to win. And Florida, historically, is not written for brown people to win. I lived there for 20 years. So.
Same.
Yeah.
So they get into a scuffle that, like, once the phone is hung up, which I'm not even going to get into the phone thing, because it's a whole, we need to stay on track with the Second Amendment.
Right.
But they get into a scuffle, which is not recorded, but you do hear other residents calling in, hearing screaming, help, and then a gun firing. So when he is taken in, when Zimmerman is taken in, he basically says, I was scared for my life, and I was defending myself.
And I only shot once.
Literally all it takes for stand your ground.
Through his heart. So, I mean, it just allows you to say that you were scared and just take a life without, you know, without any remorse or anything. But it could never be the other way around. Hence, what was the young lady's name? Angela.
Oh.
No, Melissa Alexander. Right? Was it Melissa Alexander? And she claimed to stand her ground as well in Florida. It was a black woman.
Angela.
And her name's Angela, right?
Yeah, I have it. I'll give her name while you tell the story.
Yeah, so she claimed to stand her ground in Florida. Her husband, she was having a domestic dispute with him, and she didn't shoot him whatsoever. She just shot some warning shots off, and she claimed stand your ground. And the prosecutor for Florida, Angela Corey, gave her 20 years. 20 years, black lady.
20 years.
She didn't even shoot her husband. She didn't even shoot him.
No, she shot after.
She shot warning shots.
Yes. So Marissa Alexander, Melissa Alexander, so she's a black female. She is beaten by her husband, okay, at the time this takes place. So then she fires 2 warning shots. She does not even hit him. She fires 2 warning shots.
Just warning shots, like, just get away from me, like, you know, give me my space.
Exactly. And she claimed stand your ground, right? So this is a black woman now claiming stand your ground. Doesn't even hurt anyone, is just firing warning shots. She got 20 years and 3 counts of aggravated assault. And George Zimmerman is still walking around.
And let us not forget, because, you know, we want to be correct, George Zimmerman, when he went to trial, they actually did not file it under Stand Your Ground.
They didn't. So, but he still benefited from it.
Absolutely, because it was in the verbiage
exactly.
that they gave to the jury. So
exactly,
it's like so manipulative. Manipulative.
And you already know what the Stand Your Grounds laws are based on the demographic of that jury, I would assume. So even if you're not putting your case off as a Stand Your Ground case and you're just doing it as a regular self-defense case, he's still benefiting from that law. So Correct. There are laws that are happening that white people are benefiting from because and they don't even have to claim them. Like just because they exist.
Somebody will just put it in effect for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll be like, oh yeah, okay, cool. We know what bucket to put it in. But guaranteed, like your public defender doesn't give a shit about you. So I mean he's not putting anything in for you. Time or any energy, anything. So yeah, that's Trayvon.
So that is a moment where we have somebody's Second Amendment rights. So this is after 2008. This is in 2012. So in February 2012, this happens, and in 4 years prior was when we saw the shift in the Second Amendment, and now it applies to individual rights. And we have the NRA coming in and lobbying for legislation like the Stand Your Ground Act.
Yes.
And then even like, this isn't Second Amendment, but this goes to just a topic on the Stand Your Ground Act, since we're kind of talking about gun control. So during Trayvon's case, everyone got a little glimmer of hope because they're like, okay, you know what? Something's wrong. Somebody died. Let's re-examine the Stand Your Ground Act. So, which ended up just being like, oh, let's give them a little something. So on the task force to re-examine the Stand Your Ground Act, they put the person that wrote the Stand Your Ground Act
on the panel.
On the panel, people that were involved in the person who put in the most money, I think, to push the law through. Everyone was connected to the Stand Your Ground Act, so it was just
brought them all back together and sat them in a room and were like, "You guys go ahead and reassess the law, but you wrote the law, so you obviously feel like it's great already." And nothing changed.
Nothing at all.
Yeah. Always giving the community a crumb. Like they love to do that. Just give you just enough for you to like feel like you got somewhere and then like back off, you know.
Yes.
Which is unfortunate.
So for everybody in the chat, if you had questions, please send them again. I just removed the troll from the chat. And I know there was a lot of back and forth. I really appreciate everyone for sticking up for us. But if you had like actual questions, please resend them, and we will definitely address them. That person is no longer in the live.
Oh, I didn't even know what was going on. Topics.
I can't wait to watch this back in my eyes. Like you're talking, I'm like reading. I'm like, that's probably what I look like the whole time. All right. 19, let's go. 19 says Jeb Bush created the Stand Your Ground law in Florida for the NRA. Yes, yes, yes. And all the white supremacies loved that law. So it's basically that law. So this happened in 2005, right? The Stand Your Ground. So then in 2008 is when they changed what the amendment means. If it weren't for the 2008 case, like we would still have a little bit of like, okay, well, at least we can now take it to the Supreme Court and say that it violates the amendment. But now that we have that precedent case, it's like all just coming to a head. And now we're at the point where we're seeing just it kind of like coming to a head. So we have all of these laws. They need to be rewritten. It's just out of control. Like it's people don't want their toys to be stolen, basically. So they change the narrative.
And it's not working in the favor of everyone either. You know, it's like I can understand how we should have guns because I think that, you know, we all should be awarded protection. but it's not fair when you're not giving everyone the same right. And, you know, that's a problem too. It's like, if we're going to have the NRA out here, we're going to say, yeah, everybody gets guns, then everybody gets guns. Don't try to take my right to get a gun, but everybody else over here can have a gun, you know? I mean, we just need to have an equal playing field in general. And there also does need to be like slight regulations on, you know, your mental health and things like that, like your bias, your prejudice to the world that you live in, if you want to have a stockpile of weapons.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But we're not trying to take anyone's rights. I just want to state that. I don't know what's taking place, but we don't want to take anyone's rights. We just want to have open dialogue about the world that we live in and the things that we're all facing together. Yeah?
Yes. Let's do it.
Any other questions? Did you see any more?
I didn't.
Okay.
Do you want to go to Philando?
Yeah, so we are going to go into Philando. So Philando Castile, July 26, 2016, another Black gentleman. He was 32 years old. He was in his vehicle. He was pulled over by an officer. He had his girlfriend in the car, and there was a 4-year-old child in the back seat of the car. The officer, you know, comes up to the window, asks for his paperwork, and he lets the officer know that he has his paperwork, as well as that he has a weapon in the car, and that he has his paperwork for the weapon. And, you know, before you know it, the officer immediately is like tense when he says that he has a gun, you know. I'm telling you I have a gun so that you're not tense, so you don't think I'm hiding it. But as soon as I say it, it's like a whole nother, you know, state of heightened awareness for you. Then next thing you know, he shoots into the car 7 times, hits Philando 5 times, and his girlfriend starts videotaping in between it. So this is really when I feel like, you know, we were just like, you know, even no matter how terrible something is, it's like you need to get it on tape, because it's the only thing that you can do. Like, you're sitting in the car, can you just imagine your mates in the, you know, the driver's side, you're sitting there, you know that everything is fine, and this person just comes and like takes everything away in 5 seconds. So
and let's talk about for 2 seconds, just because it has to be addressed. As you heard Khaliah say, he fired 7 shots. 5 shots hit Philando. So 2 shots, he was so scared. The police officer was so terrified that he missed from close range. As far away as I am.
What if he had shot? Yeah, what if he killed everyone in the car? Like, where is the de-escalation? Okay, like, we're paying salaries, you know what I mean? Like, where is the just like care for other human life? Like, I understand that it is a difficult job, but you also sign up for the job. Like, there needs to be more training. There needs to be, you know, people policing the areas that you're in that look like you, people who understand your community. You know, you can't just be throwing police officers into communities with Black people who have never been around Black people before. You don't understand my lingo, you don't understand like how I'm just talking and laughing, and like if I'm a little louder, you think it's an aggressive thing. You know, we need to have community policing. There's just so many things that are going on that need to happen there. And then Philando had the right to have the weapon, you know, and even then it wasn't taken into consideration.
So he has the right. He says, I have a gun. I just want to let you know I have a gun. I have all the permits. I need to, like, I'm trying to do the right thing.
Correct.
Reaches for his identification.
And he said, don't grab it. Don't grab it.
Don't grab it. Don't grab it. Don't grab it.
And he's like, I'm not grabbing it.
Saying, he's not grabbing it. He's not grabbing it. Literally pulling for his ID and gets shot. And Tisha McCoy said in the comments, the officers always say they feared for their lives. If they are that afraid, they should not be police.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. Because where's the de-escalation? We're paying your salaries. You should have wanted to join the force for protecting people, you know what I mean? Not for accidentally killing people or just for, you know, taking pleasure in doing it. And the 11th Amendment, sovereign immunity, is what gives them the right to kill people because it's part of their job as an officer of the law. It shouldn't be part of your job. You know what I mean? Like, that should be a huge infraction.
Saving people.
Yeah, that should be a huge infraction. Like, when you kill somebody, that should be like, man, you know what? You're going to have to take 6 months off. Like, we're not, I mean, you need to be better trained. Obviously, we didn't do what we were supposed to do with you because you're fucking up. Like,
1,000%, 1,000%, 1,000%. We have less than 10 minutes left. I definitely want to talk about Brianna, and make sure we get our amendment.
Yes.
So if you guys have any questions, we're talking about Trayvon, we're talking about Philando specifically, and we're talking about Brianna. If you have questions, please ask them. And we're going to jump right into Brianna so that we have time to make sure that all of these cases are heard.
All right. So Breonna Taylor, our most recent unfortunate Black body. This happened March 13th, 2020. It's a 26-year-old medical tech from Louisville, Kentucky. And this young lady was in her home, her and her partner, sleeping, long day at work, fighting coronavirus during this pandemic, saving lives.
Essential worker.
Saving lives, being essential. No knock warrant. No, this is the crazy part. No knock warrant, plain clothes.
Yeah.
So not only are you just busting into my house, but you're busting into my house looking like a regular person, okay? Yeah. So my partner shoots at you because I have the right, it's my Second Amendment right, I have my papers to shoot at you because you're in my house in plain clothes because I would know that you're a police officer, right? I shoot at you, you return fire, kill my mate, and take me to prison for shooting you.
Still charged.
Coming to my house. How am I supposed to know that you're a police officer? Like, so many terrible things. Now Brianna's gone. Her mate, you know, he gets hauled off to jail, and that's because he's Black. Like, if that were, if that was a white man, they would have been like, "Oh my God, officer, we're so sorry.
You're fired."
So sorry. Yeah. The officer would have
killed someone.
Guaranteed, and a white woman. If you can't, well, you already know. So terrible. The thing is like, the rights have to be the rights for everyone. The rights can't be just the rights for some people. You know, the race has to be added in for it to be the right for everyone. Because if it's not implicitly stated that it's for Black people, then it's for white people.
And it falls through every time in a court case, every single time. If you are a minority, especially if you are a minority based on the color of your skin, when it goes to court, you are judged by laws and by amendments that were written by white men. For white men.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Also, call 502-576-2003 and tell the mayor how you feel of Kentucky.
Yes, about Brianna.
Yes.
We need her murderers.
This is crazy. This is the most, I'm sorry.
Accountability.
This is the most black and white. Like, there are two people asleep. Somebody barges through their door in plain clothes with a gun out, shoots someone because they're protecting their home.
It's so deceptive, even. You know what I mean? It's so deceptive. And then you can say, well, I'm a cop. Well, how the hell was I supposed to know that? You just woke me up out of my sleep, didn't even knock on my door, and then have the audacity to not even have a uniform on, and then tell me you're the police. But I'm not supposed to shoot at you. It's just like a guessing game. They just expect you to know. And then it's just so unfortunate. So that's why we're doing this show, guys, because we want to see change. We want to see these amendments change. We're hoping that you guys have, been thinking during this episode. I know it probably got a little heated. Like I said, I was trying not to pay attention to that.
I feel like we stayed so calm.
What?
I feel like we stayed so calm compared to the phone conversation.
Like I said, like I I want everybody to just have an open dialogue about things. Like, no need to get heated about things. You can't necessarily change people's minds, but we just need to be here and listen to each other at least. So it just is what it is.
We have about 2 minutes left, and I definitely want to make sure we read our amended
Okay, cool. And you have the amendment like printed out so you can read it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. I'm going to try to get this out fast enough so you guys can comment. So we want to start amending the amendments. So we are starting with the Second Amendment, and this is how we feel it should read, and we definitely want this to be collaborative. So if there's something that's missing, please let us know.
Yes.
So we came up with the right of all people, regardless of race, color, or creed, to keep and bear arms within determination of mental health. Mental health requirement to be established by past and present bias, prejudice, lucidity, and background. Individuals must pass a test catering to their mental and physical abilities, including but not limited to an assessment on fear-based reaction, and the ability to use and store the firearm of purchase. Additionally, organizations, regardless of race, color, or creed, will be allowed a well-regulated militia to protect the security of a free state.
So we clearly added some things there. I know it probably sounds a little wordy, but it's an idea.
The main thing we wanted to drive home, we spoke about how all of these cases have a couple things in common. Number one, race. Mm-hmm. Number two, fear-based reaction. Mm-hmm. So you cannot hold people accountable for their fear and their race. Mm-hmm. We can't have, these amendments aren't applying to Americans.
Right. Absolutely. And fear is not something that you can just like pinpoint. So it needs to literally be put in there. I mean, it's just like saying you can't brandish a weapon. It's because it's a fear-based reaction. So you can't just fear shoot me. Either.
We have an organization that is telling people to be scared, to buy guns to protect themselves. So we're instilling fear in people and saying, be scared, buy guns. And then we're going around and we're saying, don't worry, we passed a law called Stand Your Ground. We have about 30 states right now. We're going for the whole 52. So don't even worry about it, because, you know, you can be scared and shoot someone and get off, unless you're black or
correct
brown.
Correct. Or anything but white.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Thank you for correcting me.
What does this say? Would you mind the amendment in writing so we can keep referencing it? Oh, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make it my bio.
Yes. We will put the amendment up. We'll put it up somewhere. I think, you know what, Nova, maybe when we're done with the video, you know how like you can put the transcript in there? Yeah. Maybe you can put it in there.
Oh, I
so
love
then
that.
When you pull up the episode, it pulls up our amendment to the amendment. And you guys, if you come up with some good amendment ideas, please hashtag amendment to the amendment.
Yes.
You know, so then we can keep the conversation going. Pack says people should be allowed the same weapons the police have. Bet they would stop sending them armored cars. Yeah, true that too. Like, I just feel like everything should be equal. I don't feel like necessarily like taking people's rights. I just feel like if you can have it, I should be able to have it too. So then we're equal, because that's a form of gun control as well. I feel like if everybody had them, then not everybody would use them, because everybody's equal, but they don't want it that way. And that's part of the problem, is that, you know, they want their guns, but they don't want people like me to have guns. Then it's a problem. Then it's like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, you know, even when I don't have a gun, it's a problem. So that's what the conversation is for.
We have about 10 seconds left, and I've just had such a good time with you today. I know it was a heavy subject, but like, I feel like this episode was so great, Khaliah.
This was good. I'm excited